Hello and welcome to the GrapeSEED official podcast. We are up to number 154, Miklos. So that means it's your this and that episode coming back. I feel like it wasn't that long ago where we recorded the special number 100 episode, and we're already over halfway to number 200. We'll have to start planning what we're going to do for that one.
Yeah, I'm going to have to clear my calendar for that.
We still have many, many weeks, at least a whole another year, basically. A little less than a year, but we'll get there. So topic today. What is your general thesis that we're going to be going with?
Oh, wow. That sounds awfully grandiose. My general thesis. I don't really have a lot of theses, but today I was thinking because recently somebody recommended an episode of a podcast. I hope you're sitting down, Adam, but sometimes I listen to other podcasts besides this one.
Now, I'll make an exception because I listened to this one too, but this is an NPR podcast. What was the name of it again?
It's a program called Fresh Air that people might be familiar with. It's been on it's been on the radio for years and years, and they have a podcast version of that show. And they did an episode a while back where they were talking about the human voice. And they had a great guest on who had some experiences with his own voice and losing it. But the gentleman wrote a book about the voice. And one of the things that they talked about that is related to what we do, and this is why I wanted to talk about it with you, is how the human voice develops, and particularly how that's connected to our development of language and our ability to communicate orally. And as I was listening to it, I just thought, oh gosh, we talk about this in the GrapeSEED training, of course, when it comes to language acquisition. We make comparisons to the acquisition of a second or other languages. We kind of compare and contrast that process to that of how we as humans acquire our first language. And through GrapeSEED coaching, and through all the support, the teacher support materials, there's a lot of talk about natural language acquisition and second language acquisition. And in this podcast I was listening to that you heard too, it just occurred to me that we kind of we make a distinction to a certain extent between regarding the differences between acquiring your first language and acquiring languages after the fact. But I thought it's really an important discussion, or something important to keep in your mind as a teacher and as a parent too, of course, what the similarities and differences are between acquiring your first language when you're a baby and then acquiring subsequent languages later, and how that affects the way we deliver GrapeSEED in the classroom.
Excellent. Before you dive into that stuff, though, I want to just back up a little bit and give a little bit of context just to make sure we're all on the same page, you and me and everybody listening, that yes, GrapeSEED is based on language acquisition principles, and we do the best to try to make our classroom environment mimic how a child learns their first language. But necessarily, we can't completely replicate that. It's not going to be the exact same way that a baby learns their first language, right? Because we're starting with 4-year-olds with GrapeSEED or 3-year-olds in Little Seed. We're not starting with babies fresh out of the oven. We're waiting a few more years and then we're starting the process. So it's not going to be exactly the same, but there are some similarities and some differences that you've uncovered that you wanted to talk about. So let's get into those.
Well, okay, excellent. And the first thing regarding the voice in general that they brought up in this, and that I kind of just want to throw out there as a general, I guess, maybe piece of advice or something to keep in mind, and that is, our voices, our human voices, are amazing, and we have to take care of them. And as teachers who teach GrapeSEED, we use our voices a lot, and we have to take care of them. And so I would definitely encourage everybody out there, especially if you're teaching all day, or if you're teaching more than a couple of GrapeSEED classes per day, or even if it's just one. I would argue that anytime you're going to be using your voice to convey meaning, to sing songs and tell stories to kids in a way that's going to help them acquire English, do vocal warm-ups. you'll be able to use your voice more effectively, and you'll avoid injuring your voice. Because I have a feeling that there's probably teachers out there listening to this right now who either themselves or know somebody who has injured their voice or become groggy, or it's, like when you sing karaoke, the next day, so there are days when you teach GrapeSEED all day that the next day you'll come in and you'll sound like, like, and that's really bad for your voice. So keep your voice is just a beautiful instrument, and it's critical for delivering GrapeSEED.
Absolutely. I've had those experiences too after teaching multiple classes in a day. And then towards the end of the day, you have that scratchy voice, and it's a little bit harder to speak than normal. Not so bad that you can't speak, but it's just, it doesn't feel right. So beyond, I want to get your most recommended vocal warm-up that you want to recommend teachers to do. But before that, just general advice, and this is just good for health in general, just stay hydrated as much as possible. Drink water throughout the day. Make sure you're getting enough fluids, and that'll help too. But what's your go-to vocal warm-up that teachers can do before they're going to teach their 7 classes in a day, or even more in some cases?
Oh, wow. I really love this. This goes back. Some of people may know I've talked about this. Years ago, I wanted to be a stage actor, and so I majored in theater in university, and did a lot of voice warm-ups. And I don't know, there's too many. There's a ton I've forgotten, but some of them are just your basic kind of tongue twister kind of phrases that you can just use to kind of exercise your mouth and your throat. You can find comprehensive lists of these things online, I'm sure. And even if you just Google vocal warm-ups for stage actors, or just vocal warm-ups in general, you'll find YouTube videos and everything about these things that are going to be way better than what I'm about to say. But stuff as simple as just like black bug's blood. Like silly phrases like that kind of exercise. They're designed to exercise certain muscles in your mouth and in your throat. And yellow aluminum, I'm not even going to say it right. Yeah, definitely find the ones that are good for you as well. And even something that I used to do before teaching GrapeSEED during the day was going through the songs and stories that I was going to be singing throughout the day, or just take a selection of those and just slowly, and this is a good way to practice the stories and songs as well, but just slowly enunciate them to yourself. And a thing to do is lay down flat, facing up, because that helps you breathe and from your diaphragm. If you're speaking from up in your throat all day, or if your natural tendency is to speak from your throat or from your from your nasal area, that can be stressful on your voice. But when you lay down, your body naturally tends to allow your voice to come from deeper inside, from your diaphragm, from inside your chest. And if you can practice doing that when you're standing upright as well, if you can just be practicing speaking so that your voice comes from inside and not from your throat, then you won't be putting extra stress on your throat, and you'll be speaking in a way that'll extend the stamina of your voice. Yeah.
Excellent. Those are some good tips to get started with protecting your voice and taking care of it. But let's get into kind of the meat of what we want to talk about today, the similarities and differences of language acquisition with respect to GrapeSEED versus the actual development of a child.
Yeah, okay. So one of the things that fascinated me, okay, I'm going to back up just for a second. Years ago, we were doing an in-person teacher training, and we were talking about the fact that, like you said, that GrapeSEED is designed to mimic the way that children, babies, acquire their first language. And there was this teacher, I'll never forget her. She raised her hand and said, "But it's different. It's not the same." And at the time, I was a little bit indignant. I was just like, "Hey, be quiet. I'm trying to make a point here." But that always stuck with me, because she was right. She is right. It is different. And that doesn't take away from what we're doing with GrapeSEED. If we properly consider those differences and how it's different, and of course how it's similar, then we can be better at helping children acquire language.
Goodbye, my friends, goodbye. I'm sad to say goodbye. It was a good day, but now I will say goodbye, my friends, goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.